Hello, everybody, and welcome to the teachings with Miffy Maximilian, who has kindly offered us to come 8 consecutive Saturdays and helping us with all of the many questions that at least I do have about Buddhist rituals and helping us to guide us about setting up the altar, doing the mandala, doing the physical mandala, prostrations, using the mala, everything that we just needed to know and what I would have hoped to have been learning 12, 13 years ago, because I was new and I just had to get started. But right now we have Miffy, and Miffy is the SPC from Langri Tangpa Center in Brisbane, Australia. And that's why we are doing it this time of the day, because otherwise Miffy would have been up in the night, and I'm not sure that will go well with her. And
well, it kind of is the night time actually, but I'm a night owl, so this is quite handy for all of us because it's 11 o'clock at night here, so it's still hours away from my bedtime.
Good. And my last part of the introduction is that Miffy was, she just was raised with Buddhism, having a Buddhist mother, and met Lama Yeshe as a kid, and simply was brought into the Dharma. And I mean, what else could we ask for? And I'm sure she will explain and tell about herself. And before I pass on the word, I would like to say any question is welcome. Miffy will ask you to ask questions, and I've got a bunch. So welcome, Miffy. We look so forward to hearing your words.
Thank you, Lars. Thank you for your kind introduction, and hello, everyone. I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm really happy to make some Dharma connections across the great ocean from one side of the world to the other, and to visit a sister center in the FPMT. It's just a really lovely thing to be able to do. So I'm also thrilled to be able to take us through this journey over the next 8 weeks or so. As you know, I was brought up a Buddhist. Doesn't necessarily mean I was a good Buddhist. As a child, I was 100% into the Dharma. I loved everything about it. I got to go to all the pujas before they had electricity at Chenrezig Institute. So it was nighttime with candles and the lamas singing and horns and drums and cymbals, and it was just spectacular. But then I had this big long detour as I grew up, pretty much into sex, drugs and rock and roll and back again, and fell off the wagon several times. And then, you know, I found myself back here again at Langri Tangpa Center as the SPC for quite a few years now, about, I don't know, 25 years or so. So I don't count myself as an expert, but I do count myself as an enthusiast. So I will try and share whatever I can with you, and what I don't know, I'll really try and find out for you. The other thing is, as growing up a Buddhist, I noticed that over time, as people got more into Buddhism, they either really flourished and overcame their problems and really changed, possibly even became ordained as a monk or a nun. You know, their marriages got better, but equally sometimes people got more and more cranky and more into the doldrums, and kind of lost the joy, found Dharma study as pressure instead of joy. And I've kind of thought, what happened? How can this be? Like, what's the missing piece of the puzzle? That can happen. It's a real tragedy. What's missing? So a lot of this Dharma Toolkit is about that. It's about kind of breaking out those taboos and being able to ask those questions that you wished you had have asked a decade ago, and now you're too embarrassed to ask because you think you should know. Because honestly, as we come through, it's quite haphazard when we first meet the Dharma. It's never nicely organized and in order. And somewhere along the line, we can begin to fill in the gaps. So I really hope I can help with that. And also I hope I can help with bridging. It's just a little bridge that we need to build between our modern day Western experience, for want of a better way of putting it, and the ritual within Buddhism. And it's like a cultural translation that needs to be made, because of course what looks like ritual actually can bring realizations, but there's this knack in being able to approach it, and that's really what I hope to be able to be, just that bridge to step you over, and then the whole vast field opens up in front of you. So let's start with just a short motivation, a nice informal way to set our purpose for being here today. As many of you are so familiar with Venerable Robina, and she often talks about the two wings of the bird. So the wisdom and the compassion, or in more colloquial terms, we can think of it as in the spirit of curiosity and kindness. So the curiosity part, you know, we're here to develop our wisdom, to bring our wisdom to our Dharma studies, but with this attitude of being relaxed and happy to find out things that we don't know. So with curiosity, when we're curious, we don't kind of worry if we're going to look like an idiot or put pressure on ourselves. It's just it's a nice attitude to cultivate, because we don't have to put pressure on. So a sense of curiosity to get us there, and then also a sense of kindness, that on the journey things can be challenging, and so when they are, then we go down a gear and we become softer and more gentle and kind to ourselves, to others. And all of our, in particular, ritual and Buddhist practice can be a way of expressing kindness that's done in a very artistic and beautiful way that's also inspiring. So in our heart too, an attitude of curiosity and kindness for our own Dharma journey. So let's get started. I do have a screen share, and I will get it up every now and again. But today we're going to have a look at particularly why have an altar. What's important about having an altar? What's the point? And quite a few years ago now, when I managed to get over to Europe and travel around on a little tour, and as I went I tried to go to every single church that I came across. Many of them had these signs in there saying, "This is a living church. Please respect others." And I was really quite impressed by that, because there was this nice balance between the actual devotees, the practitioners of the living church, kind of sitting in the chairs in the middle of the cathedral, and then all the tourists milling around outside the edges taking photos and things. I hope I wasn't one of those flashy, pushy tourists. But you know, in a way, that's also what our altar is. It's a living experience. It's not just something that we get right and then we forget about. It's a living practice. And so having an altar is something to be enthused about and inspired, rather than feeling intimidated or feeling guilty that it's not so good, or feeling tired every time you look at it. You think, oh my God, I need to clean it up. So an altar is a living experience. An altar is also a memory prompt. So it reminds us what our purpose is, what we're trying to become, why we're alive, life, the universe, and everything, what our goals are, what we're aspiring to. Having an altar is a very quick way of remembering the enlightened qualities that we're trying to develop, of remembering to take refuge. It's like a 3D story. And in fact, we can think about having an altar, it's almost like a time machine, because we have the images of the gurus, the lamas, the lineage going all the way back to the time of the Buddha. So that's, you know, all of the past generations of bodhisattvas, of Dharma practitioners. Then we have our own altar at the moment, kind of like a continuous work in progress. We can think of it, it's almost like, you know, in psychoanalysis, where you have a sandbox or sand play, where you build it anew each time as a reflection of your inner journey. So an altar can be a lot like that as well. And then also with all of the essential elements of an altar on there, in particular, something that represents the form of a Buddha, so a Buddha statue or a Buddha picture, that's like the future result. That's our future result. So there's your time machine right there. Having an altar is also a way to accumulate incredible virtue because of the power of those holy objects. There's a great momentum that happens as well. It's not just something that's quaint or, you know, just like a folk art kind of thing. It might appear like that if we haven't kind of connected with the meaning, but once there's the meaning there, then actually an altar becomes like a mirror. And even just looking at a Buddha statue, the best way to think about it, it's like a mirror of your own potential. So what I hope to be able to cover today is what the essential elements of an altar are, what we need to have on there, the recipe, where to put it, how to arrange it, and then I'd like to talk a little bit about the power of place and the power of holy objects. So I'll get my screen share up, and so why have an altar? Oh yes, the Dharma Toolkit. So an interactive beginner series on everything you ever wanted to know about Tibetan Buddhist ritual, but we're afraid to ask. And I like to start with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, because everything starts with His Holiness, doesn't it? So we can too. And I love this picture because it's so intimate and unassuming. And, you know, if His Holiness has an altar, if it's good enough for His Holiness, it could be good enough for us too. So, you know, when we look at this altar from an enlightened point of view, there's not that much difference between His Holiness there and the Buddha statues there, because if we recall, you know, the four kayas of a Buddha, the four Buddha bodies. So the Dharmakaya, the Buddha's mind, you know, it exists everywhere, just like the Buddhas exist everywhere with no obstruction. And an altar is like an expression of this. An altar is an expression of the Dharmakaya, an expression of the Buddha's mind. And it leads us to that experience of ultimate reality of the Dharmakaya. So this is like the power of exposure, or the power of advertising for good instead of for evil. You know, we can use the power of exposure to help our mind actually achieve what we're trying to. And so the expression of the Buddha's form in the form of, say, a statue or a tanka, it's not separate from the Buddha. The statues, as well as our precious holy gurus, they're the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya form of a Buddha. So they appear to us in forms that we can relate to. And actually, to an enlightened being, someone like His Holiness, or, you know, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, when they look at the statues, they don't just see statues like I do. They actually see the Sambhogakaya form of a Buddha. They relate to that light body. And actually, when I was at Chenrezig Institute a while ago now, when Lama Zopa Rinpoche visited, and as he was climbing up onto the throne to sit down, he had a very long look at all of the statues on the altar, and in particular looked at this life-size Tara statue that was there, as if like he was having a conversation. And then when he sat down, one of the very first things that Rinpoche said was, you've got to get some better robes for the Tara statue. And so they had been these beautiful silk and gold robes from India, but of course they'd tarnished in the humidity here in Queensland and become brown and disgusting. And it was as Rinpoche was going up the stairs to the throne, he'd looked at Tara, and Tara had said, "Look at me, you know, I need a new dress." And Rinpoche got, "Oh, so sorry, I'll get onto it." So, you know, there's a lot more than just what we see as statues. Also, you know, when Rinpoche gives you a statue, if he gives you if you're lucky enough to get an interview, you know, in person one day, I've seen when he's given people a statue, he said, "This one wants to come with you." So it's not, "Oh, here, have a statue." And sometimes it's like, "Oh, this one wants to come with you." And he'll look at all of the statues and he'll pick the one that said, me, oh, I have to go with them. Okay, so we've got His Holiness. Then after starting with His Holiness, I also like to start with something a little risque. So here we'll have something just a little out there now, because I'm going to say it's all in the framing. So here we have this nice lady who's clearly a queen. How do we know? Because of the framing, because of the all of the might and the regalia. It really has quite an effect. In fact, she's on a throne, a golden throne. It's got snow lions holding it up. She's got her crown, and often we've seen a queen with the scepter and the rod, you know, like dominion over all the realms, over the empire, instead of holding a bell and dorji. You know, it's a globe of the world and a rod. So with the framing, with all of this regalia, it tells us something, and it definitely has an impression. And I'm sure if I walked up to that throne and saw all of that gold, I would be awestruck and fall down face first, for sure. But take away the framing, and here we have a nice lady in her undies. Do you say undies over there in Europe? Underpants. So, you know, really nice, but now we feel relaxed, you know, now we can go swimming or whatever. And it's like, you know, howdy doody, no intimidation at all. So there is something about framing, about positioning things, and an altar is that. An altar frames what's important to us. It brings our attention and it reminds us this is so important. So that's why altars should be big and beautiful and covered in lights and as much, you know, gold and wonderful things as possible to remind us of that. So yes, it's a dependent arising, but we're using dependent arising, the power of dependent arising, to help us. And, you know, we don't have the potential to become a queen, but we do have the potential to become a Buddha. So actually, it's even better than that. And do we remember that? How many times do we remember that? I don't remember that until I see a Buddha statue. You know, it's a little shocking in a way. So in the framing, I love all sorts of Catholic cathedrals. I've got to tell you, I'm a real sucker for pomp and gold and icons and the ceremony and everything like that. I'm really quite moved by it. There's similar things here. I think is a Kagyu temple that's near Lumbini. Really beautiful and elaborate, and got a vaulted ceiling with the sky. So again, this is framing, and we have religious framing. We also have framing in when we have special events, weddings, funerals, 21st birthdays, when you graduate university. All of these times there's a lot of pomp and circumstance and staging to bring our awareness and focus to it so it becomes memorable. So it's all about being able to train our attention on something that is worthwhile. When we have important guests come to tea, most people will do a quick clean of their house before the visitors arrive. I know I only vacuum whenever Venerable Robina comes, and it's been a long time with COVID. We got tumbleweeds now. You know, if you have dinner parties, you serve cocktails and drinks and everything. But so how often do we offer to the Buddha? How often do we clean the Buddha's land there, that little microcosm in the altar. So, you know, that kind of really nice practice of bringing our awareness to the altar. All of the beauty reminds us of the beauty of the Dharma. All of the light reminds us of the wisdom realizing emptiness. If the Dharma is the most important thing in our life, then it's good to reflect that in our altar, to make that a really important place in our house. I've got a slightly blurry version of the Lungri Tampa Center altar. So on the left is with the pull-out tables for medicine Buddha Puja, I think. We've got chandeliers inside our altar cabinets. And then there's a photo there. So it looks like Rinpoche's there and Geshe Tsultrim's there, but actually we have a cardboard cutout of Rinpoche on our throne, so that we always feel Rinpoche's there with us. And there has been times when people at the back of the room have said to me, Miffy, who's the really quiet gentleman on the throne? Because they forgot their spectacles and he just smiles at you all the time. So the thing about the power of place, of a holy place. So a Dharma center where you have these holy objects of the statues, the texts, you know, sometimes holy relics, blessed objects, things like that. The power of all of those objects accumulates in that physical place. So this is something don't underestimate it. We associate so much with places. If you've ever, I don't know, where you first met your husband or wife, where, you know, good things first happened, equally, where you had arguments with someone when you were splitting up with them, you can't go back to those places anymore. It's got a terrible feeling to it. Places can bring back trauma, and equally places can bring a feeling of just like coming home and relief, like a pool of calm. So a Dharma center is often like that. You know, it changes us and inspires us. It really is a refuge. And our own altar can become a holy place as well. So the altar is like a tool to engage with all of, or a machine to engage with all of the enlightened qualities that we want to develop. And then as we establish that, then that physical place gets established as well. If we've done it right, then we get really inspired and we just can't wait to meditate. We just, every time we walk past our altar, it's like, oh, I can't wait. I really, really want to get into it. You don't have to have your altar there all the time. It can be there. You can set it up. You can put it away. I'll go into that in a moment. But just a little bit more about the power of place. The reason why a Dharma center or your altar becomes powerful isn't from the things necessarily. You might have holy objects that do have power, but mostly it comes from the kindness, the prayers that are generated there. So really a Dharma center is the people at the Dharma center. It's not the building of the Dharma center. It's being able to walk into a place of kindness and safety, even if you don't know anybody. And here we are online, we have a virtual Dharma center and it's the same thing. Most people in the world, they think of Zoom and they just go, oh, I can't do another online thing. But for us Dharma practitioners, it's been this absolute boon. Now we can go to teachings all over the world in our pajamas. How awesome. So to me, I have a great love and affection towards Zoom, you know, our virtual world, connected together with our fiber optic lights, you know, it's really fantastic. So we have the place that becomes special and calm, and then being seen and unseen like to go there. If you've got pets, they like to come. But there's all the beings that are attracted to the Dharma as well that we don't see, that just want to hear our prayers and just want to hear our, you know, whatever that we're studying. So other unseen forces can be attracted and really support us too. So it becomes a powerful place. And then when we have holy objects on the altar, they also, from the side of the object, have power. All the different forms of the Buddha, sometimes with the holy relics, you know, it's not even a matter of belief, because you can bop one on the head of an animal and they'll completely calm down. So they don't have belief. When we have statues, we invite all of the Buddhas to actually come and abide in that statue. So the consecration ceremony is that of inviting all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions to alight into this object. And so after that consecration, then you think of the Buddha statue as the Buddha, as if it's the real Buddha. So that also becomes very, very powerful, like having the actual Buddha there. So again, at Chenrezig Institute, there was one Buddha statue made of wood, and the termites got into it and started eating it up from the inside. And you can't have that, because the next thing, you know, the next week, the whole building's eaten away. So they had to do this special ceremony to go, excuse me, please, all you Buddhas, would you mind coming out from this statue and going into the next one? So then they could just let the wood disintegrate without, you know, showing disrespect to the statue. And so then that power accumulates over time. The more people, the longer that you practice, the more holy a place becomes. It also becomes easier for us to practice because we have a ritual and a setup and everything is familiar. We don't have to put energy into it anymore. So it becomes very easy to sit down and focus and get into the zone, instead of it being an effort. So it's kind of like when you're on your bicycle, those first few pedals take some effort, but then once you've got the momentum, it's really easy. So it's the same thing with getting set up. Once you have a really nice setup and you have a little bit of a ritual, neurologically, it makes it much easier for us to then just focus instead of drag your mind there. Okay, so I can go through the components of what goes on an altar, and then we can have some questions. Though, Lars, is there any questions yet? Does anyone have any questions yet in this preamble, my setting the scene?
Yeah, you might raise your hand and ask questions, or do write them in the chat and I will read them out aloud if needed.
Don't be shy. There's no such thing as a silly question, and I may or may not be able to answer it, but I'll do my very, very best. and if not, I usually try and let people know either this is what I've studied and learned, this is from my experience, or I don't know, I'll find out. Does it make sense so far about why to have an altar? Yeah.
I think questions will come up later.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
You could run a little poll, or Lars, get people to put into the chat if you have an altar or not to start with. So I'm hoping by the end of today, someone will be enthused to build one in their very own home. Great. Oh, yeah. Good. Excellent. Lots. Oh, ping. So let's see now if we've all got the ingredients of what goes on an altar. I mean, so this particular, the Lungri Tampasena altar is quite elaborate, but it has the elements in it. And so let's just break them down now for something really basic. So the first thing, the image of a Buddha, because this is what we want to achieve. So we've got to have something to remind us of this. And the Buddha, the holy body or the holy form, that goes in the middle. So it can be a statue, it can be a tanka, it can be a postcard, it can be something that you've printed out. a good thing is to know which Buddha it is. And because we're in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we'll have a kind of a traditional Tibetan Buddhist statue. Other countries, other cultures have slightly different forms of the Buddha, and of course it means different things. So I think like the Japanese Buddha has both hands in the lap with the fingers kind of together, often forming two circles. So different meanings. So for starters, it's good to have, if you can, Shakyamuni Buddha there with the earth touching mudra. This one is missing the little bowl. Sorry about that. I should Photoshop that in. The actual bowl of the nectar of the Dharma. And when we have a Buddha statue, it's really important that we regard whether the statue is made of plaster or gold, that we have equal respect. And also whether it's artistically accomplished or it's a bit rough, we still have equal respect. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche is very particular about this, that you don't say, oh, that's a nice Buddha. No, all Buddhas are nice. So you go, oh, that's a very artistically accomplished Buddha statue. How wonderful. And to really practice that discipline with our speech, train our speech. Then if you can, to have it filled and consecrated with all the different mantras that are put inside, different mantras for each of the chakras. Some of the Buddha statues are completely solid, in which case they can be consecrated, and a little sticker of a double dorji goes on the bottom. Then if you have tantric statues, say Tara or Chenrezig or Yamantaka or Vajrayogini, they go circled around the central Buddha statue in a hierarchical order. So you'd have the highest Yoga Tantra deities first in the inner circle or at the top, and then the lower Tantra deities on the outer circle or a little bit lower. But you'd always have the Buddha in the middle. And then the tantric deities on either side, for instance. If you might have, say, a really large Chenrezig statue and a really small Buddha statue, and you might think, oh, aesthetically, it's nicer to have the big statue in the middle. Actually, what you can do is you just raise the Buddha statue a little bit so that the eyes are on the same level, say, as Chenrezig. And then aesthetically, it will still look balanced. But the Buddha there should always be there in the middle. The Tibetans like to wrap their statues in a kata, or the Buddha statues in the robes of a Buddha. They don't like naked statues. They're all covered in brocades and whatever. So that's entirely up to you how you'd like to do that. Then to the right of the Buddha goes the texts, and to the left of the Buddha goes the stupas. So often in the sadhanas, and when we talk about left and right, it's always from the point of view of the deity or the point of view of the Buddha. So we're looking at it, it's on our left, but actually it's the Buddha's right. So the actual means of taming sentient beings, the skillful means, that's all to do with the texts. And so on your altar, you have a text, can be a Lamrim text, can be Heart Sutra, it can be a modern version of Heart Sutra as a DVD or as flashcards. It can be written out in beautiful ye olde worldy font and put in a frame, whatever you like, something to represent wisdom. And then on the other side, to represent the qualities of a Buddha's mind. And so this is usually a stupa. It can also be a bell and dorji, because the bell represents the qualities of a Buddha's mind. And if you don't have a statue, then I suppose a picture or a postcard will do. Then at the top, the guru, His Holiness, whoever our gurus are. If you can, put them above everything. If you don't have space, then put them at the front. So you see there's a kind of hierarchy, and what it does is it rearranges our mind to prioritize things properly. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche likes to say no one should be higher than His Holiness. So His Holiness at the top, and then Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Lama Yeshe and, you know, and your other gurus like that. Then in front, you have the offerings. So light offerings, whether it's electric, whether it's tea lights, whatever it is, as many light offerings as you can. If you know Rinpoche, it's about as many light offerings as you can possibly fit in anywhere. Then water bowl offerings, which we'll look at in the coming classes. So the water bowls, it's generally 7, but it can be 3 or 5, or it can be one big, beautiful crystal bowl. And the water bowl offering is the special practice given by Atisha to the Tibetans of offering water. And, you know, so everybody can do that. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche likes to offer, when he offers water bowls, he doesn't just offer his own, he offers all the water bowls in all the centers around the world and in everybody's houses around the world. So for that, it's nice to have them up 24/7 and just refresh them, you know, daily. And then if you have a tantric practice, then you'd set up another set of bowls, the tantric offering bowls. And then whatever extra offerings you possibly can. So this is a picture of our Zoom altar for our all-night Tara Puja. So it's actually quite a simple altar, this one, because most of the altar was the screen share on Zoom with all the deities and everything. So this is the physical basis of what we're offering. And so I've got the water bowl offerings there in front of the Buddha. But in front, there are the tantric bowls to do with the Tara practice. What else? We've got, oh yeah, so we've got juice in the cup, an electric candle, various photos. So on either side, His Holiness and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So you kind of get the idea. There's a little bit of mixing and matching of what goes onto the altar. And then I heard that Lama Yeshe would put also like little toy airplanes on his altar, like down the bottom as an offering. So not as a praying to an airplane, but as an offering along with light and incense and all of those things, because so much of Dharma teachings depended on being able to get into an airplane and travel. So the altar, it's kind of like a vision board for the future, isn't it? And then we had the world, because that's our motivation right there for the world. So in terms of setting up your own altar then, are there questions or comments or clarifications for your own version?
Right, just raise your, yeah, excellent. Taras?
Hello, dear Miffy. Thank you so much for this wonderful course. It is really, as you say, so many things I was always afraid to ask for years. So I have one question about, I have a Amitabha statue, and I'm not sure if it's if I can put it in the middle as the Buddha.
Yeah, absolutely. Amitabha Buddha. So whatever form of the Buddha goes in the middle. So that's fine. And it's good that you know it's Amitabha statue as well, so that you know you're reminded of those qualities. But mostly because the form of the Buddha is in that Namanikaya kind of human form that we can relate to, and that's easier to then remember. That's what we're trying to become.
So can I also have a picture of Shakyamuni Buddha and the Amitabha statue?
Yes, yep. And then, I mean, it'd be great if you could have them in a row, but you just do what you can.
Great. Yes, and another question, is it important who or where the statue is filled? So can I just let it fill by any monastery, or is it better to fill it by or with the teacher?
Anyone who can do that consecration ceremony, fantastic, go for it. It very rarely happens here. It's like every, I don't know, 6 to 10 years that there's a consecration ceremony, because it's quite a big thing. And often how it happens is a center might get their big Buddha statue filled, and then everybody else is invited to bring their little ones along to get consecrated at the same time. And there's all the lamas there and heaps of sangha. It takes forever to fill it all up, and the ceremony might take a couple of days, like it's a really big thing. So if you get the opportunity to have your statue blessed or consecrated, do it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anina.
Hello, nice to meet you, and thanks a lot for this really great talk. Just out of curiosity, what do you mean by the Buddha statue gets filled? Is it, I've never heard that before, so I was just wondering what it meant.
Yeah, so generally a good quality statue in terms of how it's made is usually hollow all the way up to about here, up until halfway through, you know. And so when it's filled with mantras, different mantras for each of the chakras. And they're put in the place of the statue. So the mantras for the throat chakra are put in the throat of the statue, and the, you know, crown chakra here. And then surrounding those are put all sorts of precious things and heaps of other mantras as well. So often people will put their very best jewelry in there, all of their gold and their pearls, Tibetan medicine, money from really wise, compassionate, or successful people. So everything like that. So it becomes a really precious object. And then the base is sealed, and the double dorji is put on there, and they do the consecration then. And so from that moment, then you think, this is the Buddha. But you can also think this is the Buddha without it being consecrated. And of course, if it's a solid statue, you can still think this is the Buddha, and it gets consecrated, but it has that sticker underneath it. But it's quite a big job, and even just collecting all the stuff that goes in it is quite a big job.
Okay, interesting. My original question was actually, when I have a small flat and I'm a beginner, so many things don't mean that much to me yet. So what I have is, for example, just a picture of a Buddha, I think it's Chenrezig, and a small glass for a water bowl offering. So this is like my start, so to say. Do you have
That's a great start. That's excellent.
Do you have any other tips, like for beginners, or if you have not much space or want to start, let's say, low?
Yeah. I've got some pictures coming up that should give you an idea. Yeah. So don't worry, Nina, you'll be able to have a really nice work in progress.
Okay, thanks. And just a quick question, what is the tanka? Because you mentioned
the painting. So a tanka is the painting, and they're usually framed in the brocade so they can be rolled up and carried away with you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. And Megan.
Hello. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you are. Okay, I am a total newbie and have been linking in with a lot of venerable Rabina's talks at ungodly hours. My question to you is, when you were showing the picture, you had the text there, and you had the Heart Sutra. Is that the particular text that, like, I should be having on my altar?
It's good to have. Let's see. You can have Heart Sutra, Diamond Cutter Sutra, so any of the wisdom sutras, Prajnaparamita Sutra, or you could have a Lamrim text, so the whole path to enlightenment. But so something either to reflect wisdom or to reflect the entire path. So the Heart Sutra is very short. You could have something that you photocopy and you just fold up and put in a beautiful box. Could be anything, however you like to present it.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is so informative.
What else?
Tara.
Hi, I'm Tara. Welcome. You are lovely. Very lovely. I have a couple questions. I think you said we'll do water bowls later, so I can hold off on that. The cloth on the altar, like a cloth underneath, yours was multicolored. I kind of had questions before because I think I had a red one and then I panicked with red, so I took it off. Does the colors of cloth matter that's under the, the statues and the candles?
They all matter, and all colors are good. All colors are good.
Okay.
So it's okay, but it's nice to know what each of the colors mean.
Yeah.
So generally when, the colors of the prayer flags, the 5 colors.
Yeah.
So those 5 colors represent the 5 wisdoms. And so often when we offer a carter, it's usually white, but we can get different colored carters as well. So they also represent those 5 wisdoms. So if you know what the wisdoms are, so for instance, red, it's the discriminating awareness. And it's the one that also is having completely overcome passion and desire and attachment. So if you're attracted to putting a red cloth on there, go for it, and it's going to help you.
Okay.
And so those multicolored ones, they actually have the 5 colors in there. So that's like the all purpose. We're going to put every color in there that we possibly can. So what I've found though, just on a practical level, if you've got an altar and you can't afford to get a huge big cloth, or there's no room for a cloth, you can just have a plain colored cloth as the main one, and then under the statues have the pretty ones or the gold ones or whatever. It doesn't have to be the entire table that is the extraordinary cloth. It can be layered a little bit like that. We've also got an altar where we've got some beautiful Japanese, I don't know what it's called, the brocade that goes around the traditional Japanese outfit. And often it's a Kobe or something, I don't know, but often it's exquisite gold embroidery. So they make beautiful altar cloths as well.
Okay, so an embroidery that's not specific to the tradition is okay? Because it doesn't, okay.
I've got some doilies, and not only that, but for the long life pujas and for white Tara, I have a white doily of 6 swans, 3-dimensional swans that are all standing up. Like it's completely kitsch, and it's absolutely glorious. And then we put Tara in the middle of the crochet swans.
Nice. And one more question, okay?
Yep.
On candles, like real candles, when I light it, can I just blow it out after I'm done meditating?
No, okay. Blowing your candles out's like spitting on the Buddha.
Oh no.
So you got to get a candle snuffer that you put,
Oh goodness. Okay. Oh goodness. So I know my purification.
Say sorry, Buddha. Didn't mean
I know my purification right now. I'm regretting.
The other thing, my mother used to just go like this, and with the hand. But if you're no good at that, you can accidentally whack it, and that's So get a snuffer.
Oh my goodness. Thank you.
No worries. Okay, we've got time for a couple more. Let's or we'll run out, but keep them coming. Let's have a couple more questions.
Just a follow-up question on the lights. So small electricity lights with electricity, that's okay.
I think so. And it's also safer because I'd never leave a candle burning unattended. So many altars have burnt down that way, which is counted as an auspicious thing, purification, but I'd prefer to purify in some other way.
Right. We have Maya, hands up. Please ask your question.
Yeah, thank you for being with us and sharing your knowledge. I have a couple of questions. I'll try to make it quick. About the sticker, if you have the full statue, you said there is a Dorji sticker. What kind of sticker is it?
Whoever consecrates it will put the sticker on there, but you can tell if you have a Buddha statue, you can look on the bottom and see if there is the statue, and it's a double dorji, so it looks like.
I didn't there, so I just wonder where to get it. Okay, but I can.
No, well, you don't have to worry about getting it, because if your statue is consecrated, it will have it on there.
Oh, it doesn't. Okay, but maybe in relation actually to other people, if you are in Europe, there is Nalanda monastery. They're doing the consecration. So if you want to have your statue filled, they're doing it and sending it within Europe. So that's something you can also check for yourself. I have still a question about the arrangement. I understood at some point there is also the vertical arrangement of the altar. And I understood that like the stupa should be on top, then the Buddha in the middle, and then the text underneath. Is that wrong?
I have not heard that. No, I've heard the other way around, that if you have a vertical arrangement, all the texts go at the top.
Text at the top.
So if you have a bookshelf, for instance, the top of the altar will be all books.
Okay.
Then the next shelf will be the statues, and then the next shelf will be all the offerings.
Okay. Yeah. And the stupa,
So,
in that vertical arrangement, where would the stupa be?
under the Buddha statue.
Okay.
Yeah, but I haven't heard of that arrangement, so I'm not sure. So in the Pabonka Rinpoche Liberation and Palm in Hand, it's kind of like the texts, then the statues, and then offerings. So I'm not sure about the other one.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, thank you for now.
Okie dokie.
Thank you.
And Yuval.
Thank you so much for this. It's so valuable. Thank you so much. I have a question about the consecration, because first of all, I find it a super interesting topic, and I hope one day to be able to learn much more about it. But for the time being, I have some statues and they are not consecrated, but I do actually have printed some Dharmakaya relics, and I want to fill them so they're at least filled, or do my very best at the moment within my abilities. Is that okay? And
Yeah,
should
I think so.
stick with the small consecration prayers that are available from FPMT?
Yeah, go for it. But make sure you get the instructions from Google of how to fill the relics, because the relic mantra, you've got to make sure that the mantra is up the right way, that you don't put the mantra in upside down. That's the most important thing. And then there are simple ways to do the statue. So if you can find out how and then just follow the instructions, fantastic. And then, at the end of every puja, you've got an option. Either the wisdom beings go back to their own abode, meaning dissolve back into the Dharmakaya, or we ask the wisdom beings to absorb into our holy objects. So at the end of every puja, we reconsecrate our holy objects.
Thank you.
Great.
Will we maybe do, if we have some time in this course, do something like, is it possible to do something like this is it possible to do it through Zoom, or is that not possible?
Oh, look, anything's possible through Zoom. We can do it.
Thank you.
And Jill, last one.
Hello, Miffy. Hello. I'm so excited to be doing this with you. You've no idea. I think I'm going to go and dye my hair pink again in your honor. Yes, no, it's a very silly question. Probably the answer, hopefully, is yes. I'm always concerned about doing it wrong, and already I'm going, no candles and wrong Buddha. No cloth. Where did cloth come from? So hopefully, are you going to cover all these things? Lighting candles, putting them out, putting the water in, taking the water out, all that.
Yes,
yes,
right. I am going to cover that in a very simple way. So that we get started, because it's so overwhelming sometimes, and it is such a shame that people think, I don't want to do it wrong, so I'm not going to do it, because this is practice. So in the word practice means we're a beginner, and there's a very rare beginner that doesn't stuff things up in the beginning. I mean, this is natural. We're supposed to stuff things up. Actually, that's how we learn. So in particular, an altar is a work in progress, and it's an experiment. So it's a grand, wonderful experiment. In a way, it can be a bit like biofeedback, because I notice sometimes as my energy ebbs and flows, sometimes the altar gets quite dusty. Other times it's chockers full of things. Other times it's quite sparse, and it's like I can notice it without being judgmental and go, oh, okay, I just got to recalibrate things a bit. You know, that's my energy must be quite low at the moment. So when your energy is low, you don't get all guilty and berate yourself. You just go, okie dokie, take it down a level. I'll just do the minimum and feel really good about that.
Good, thank you. Well, okay, just one more on cloth. You said you dress the Buddha. Now my Buddha is just a garden Buddha. A friend gave me. I love it. It's a stone garden. But his clothes are all built in. I've never put clothes on.
Yeah. Maybe I think just putting a carter around. So in that picture that I've got here, see how there's a white carter just draped around? But these ones on the side don't have one. But having a carter around the Buddha or draped over the knees of the Buddha, or even I've got one now that goes along the front edge of the altar so that you've offered a carter. That's just a nice way to do it.
Does that have to be a special carter from
No,
the...
just something that fits.
Lovely, thank you. Lovely, thank you.
That's okay. So now, so this mantra I put in here into your notes, because if you have antiques as your offering, so I've got antiques in, you know, like the vases that I put the fake flowers in and things like that. If you've got antiques from the op shop, you haven't inherited them, sometimes whoever had them last has not want to let go of them. And so you can have interfering spirits that come along with those antiques. So Geshe Zopa and Punsog Rinpoche said, whatever antiques that you get, and also if you get beautiful antique tablecloths, for instance, to offer, then you bless them with this mantra, the mantra of dependent arising. And so that liberates whatever beings that are stuck to those objects. They're able to let them go and release them. Traditionally, like Tibetans, they don't like having anything from the op shop. They just want everything new and pristine and wonderful, and preferably still wrapped in the plastic that it came in. But, you know, here in Australia, where you're very lucky to find an antique anything, you know, I love the antiques. So this is a really nice workaround to be able to make sure everything's psychically clean. Also, if you have things, for instance, that have come from objects that have been taken from the land, there might be, you know, nagas and land spirits that it was their thing. You know, if you've got a piece of driftwood from the beach, for instance, that's somebody's, that's not ours. And yet, you know, we just collect things willy-nilly. So as a way to be able to release whatever beings are attached or upset about those things. Of course, it's better to put it back, but otherwise we can say this mantra. Now, the Tibetans also, because they're largely nomadic culture, they'd have these little reliquaries made of metal inside all the various mantras and things, and then the whole thing in a leather pouch, and they'd wear it around their necks and carry it with them. So that's the pop-up altar, old Tibet style. Then we've got our pop-up altar from Amazon, you know, like a pop-up card, which is if you travel and you just get to a hotel room, you can have your pop-up Chenrezig or Manjushri or the Buddha and put your little after dinner mint from the hotel there as your offering, and there you have it. What I've found for setting up an altar, old cabinets like this can be painted up and made really nice. This altar, the way it's set up is a little strange, but you know, that's okay. It gives you a bit of an idea. What I found the very best are 1950s martini drinks cabinets. They are just awesome for altars because everything folds out. You've got these little shelves where you can put all the statues and the offerings or whatever. They've got beautiful glass shelves. Often they've got a mirror at the back so that lots of light reflects. And then you can put it all back again in the cupboard. And this is really handy if the other people in your house are not Buddhists, or they're freaked out by an altar, or if your parents are so worried you're going to burn in hell because, you know, you're not Christian anymore or something like that, that we don't have to disturb anybody. We can have, you know, like Russian icons, you open them up and there they are, and when it's done you close them again, to be really discreet about it. So I've got quite a few of these 1950s drinks cabinets. They're just awesome. Then you can, it's good to have the altar higher rather than lower. So generally from hip level upwards, so that if you are meditating, you're sitting on the floor, you're actually looking up at the Buddha. Generally though, I think, say in the Tibetans, they'd have their altar at hip level, but they'd be sitting on their bed or on their, you know, that kind of platform. So they wouldn't be sitting necessarily directly on the floor. But I have found that if you have your altar lower than your bed, it's just going to, feng shui wise, it's going to mean that you're just always going to be sleepy. You've got to have your altar higher than your bed, or you're going to be riven with sleep or distraction. So because I have so much fun with the Lungri Tangpa Center altar, and it's huge, and well, in my mind it's huge, and then we have the little Zoom altar that also is like a you know, more traditional, then my altar at home completely untraditional. So here's my altar at home. It's actually what I would call a radial altar, because it starts here with this statue of Amitayus. That's the middle, and then everything else radiates out around it. This is not kosher, but I just put it in there to give you an idea that as long as you're respectful, it is okay to kind of go out to the edges. And I found that because our formal altar, you know, I have great enjoyment making that all beautiful and keeping it clean and all those things, that my own altar at home is much more a work in progress, and it's much more like a psychological kind of like sandbox play or something like that. So I've got my dead mum's ashes at the top here, and some and Lama Zopa Rinpoche at the top, and my dead mum's coffee cup, her favorite coffee cup. Then right in the middle, Amitayus, and then some nice pictures of Paris and Our Lady of Guadalupe. I've got the text underneath, totally not right. They should be the other way around, but hey, this is just how it's turned out. And then this really elaborate skull to remind me of impermanence, and a stupa, and then, you know, Vajrayogini down the bottom here with another teacup, and then all the books surrounding it. So to me, this is a radial altar. It's not a hierarchy, but it just, you know, it depends. So not kosher. And then I did my pop-up altars. So I got all inspired with these glass domes from IKEA and decided to make some mini altars. So here's one that I've put in because this is something I totally made up, Pink Zambala, who may or may not exist, I don't know. But there's Pink Zambala there with his Naga mermaids, you know, the queens of wealth. We've got macaroons and cheesecakes and actually little bottles of pink Chianti there. I painted Zambala pink with glitter. And then there's this incredible hand-blown, you can't really see it very well, perfume bottle, glass perfume bottle that's like a wealth vase. So when I was making this particular vignette, and I wanted to make an offering, a really beautiful, scrumptious offering to Zambala, who is the, you know, the kind of the commonly called wealth deity, but actually a manifestation of the Buddha's generosity. And so we were in Sydney having a holiday, possibly it might have been at the time when His Holiness the Dalai Lama was in Sydney giving teachings. So I don't live in Sydney, you know, I go there every couple of years, and we're walking through this incredible shopping complex, and I look into this shop and I see this exquisite hand-blown perfume bottle, and I think, that's the perfect thing to offer Zambala. And I'm looking at the price and it's really expensive. So I walked into this shop to ask them, you know, the price of that and various other things. And the lady at the counter says, "Oh, hello, are you Miffy?" I'm like, what? How spooky is that? She said, "Oh yeah, I know you from teachings in Bendigo with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and pink hair, you know, it helps." Anyway, it turns out that this shop, it's a jewelry shop with all sorts of exquisite other little things around it. And they've got a display in the middle of the shop, a glass cabinet that you can walk around and have a look from all sides. And the glass cabinet's, you know, 6 feet tall. So you wouldn't look what's on the top of it. What's on the top of this glass cabinet is a stupa. So that everybody in the shop, as they're shopping for their diamonds and whatever, is just accidentally circumambulating this stupa. That was extraordinary. So I bought the bottle. I went, this is the exact right thing to put into my altar vignette of Zambala. So there's this deep and meaningful story to it. So that's like a work in progress. And I was so happy to spend the money then to offer to Zambala and to have this story behind it. And then when Venerable Robina came and gave teachings online on Zoom, instead of offering a mandala, I just offered her one of these altars, these little pop-up altar vignettes at the beginning of each teaching is my mandala. She was quite thrilled. Okay, so that'll kind of give you a little bit of an idea. Then let's have a look at, just dive in a little bit deeper about the texts and the stupas, what goes on there. So the holy texts. We've got an image here of the Tibetan texts. So as you know, they've got either wood or cardboard on the top or the bottom. They're long and skinny like this. They're loose leaf, so that you could just take a few leaves with you in your pocket, pull them out and study them. Everybody could share the text. And so every Dharma center, it's good to have a copy of the Tengyur and Kangyur, which is the Buddha's teachings and the commentaries. So I think it's 100 volumes of the Buddha's teachings and then 200 volumes of the commentaries. And if you have them, then that counts as the Dharma jewel. They're representative of the Dharma jewel on your altar. And what's amazing now is you can actually get them from Singapore, all burned onto one CD. So you can fit them in your room. When we have these Dharma texts, and whether it's just a photocopy of the Heart Sutra on our altar, whatever it is, what we are relating to though is a subtle body of the Buddha. So the actual letters are subtle forms of Buddhas. So say this mantra here, Om Mani Padme Hum, you know, we see the mantras as being three-dimensional, standing upright, made of light, like neon, but very soft and fluid, and each one singing its own tune harmoniously with everything else. So when we have all of our holy texts on the altar and our Lam Rim texts and everything, each and every letter is made of light, standing upright, singing its own song. So these texts, they help to connect us with wisdom, and it's good to have a physical basis of the meaning. Then the stupas, there's all different types of stupas. Here's an image of the 8 great stupas. There's also a image of the Buddha there where you can see how it corresponds to the different parts of the Buddha's body. I don't know very much about these, but I am aware that many of the steps that go up on the stupa, The steps represent the 4 immeasurables. The stupas all have these like divine proportions, all in conjunction with each other, and all of those proportions mean particular things. I'm not sure if in your notes you can see all of these tiny, tiny little words that describe what all the various parts of the stupa are, but down the bottom here are, you know, the 3 steps, 3 jewels of refuge. Here, these 4 steps, the 4 immeasurable thoughts. Here it can be, it says the 13 powers of the Buddha. Sometimes I heard it was the 10 grounds. And then right at the top, the ultimate and relative bodhicitta. So we can have a little stupa, we can have a picture of a stupa, but the main thing is to think that it is a representation of all the qualities of a Buddha's mind, the qualities of enlightenment. And so then here's big ones. So this is from Kopan, our home monastery in Nepal. So this is Geshe Lama Konchog's stupa and Lama Lundrup's stupa. Absolutely gobsmackingly beautiful. I mean, how exquisite is that? These are really elaborate. And I find just incredibly moving. As moving as going into a cathedral, you know, for me, I just think they're extraordinary. And then little ones. So this one on the left here is it's gold leaf stupa of with my mother's ashes in it, Inta, who ran Lungri Tongpa Center. She died and I attempted to step into her shoes to keep the center going. So we've got that on a stupa podium. So this wooden box on wheels that we can wheel out, and it's got pop-up tables that we can put up offerings, and when we have Tara Puja, we can circumambulate. So it's a, you know, it's a kind of a nice thing. And then this is Rinpoche's one in Aptos House in New Mexico. And so he's got this all set up so that the stupa there in the middle with all of the mantras and everything within it. The 21 taras are done as light, you know, in this incredible resin. The Kadampa stupas in between, a different form of stupa, and then all these offering bowls so that you can continuously circumambulate. And Rinpoche really encourages us that, especially if you work at a job where you're in the office, you're on the phone all the time, set up a table with a stupa and offerings so that when you're on the phone, you can just pace, instead of up and down, circumambulate the entire time. And then this is the bit that will blow your mind. So holy relics. If you're lucky enough, there are, you know, Dharma centers that have holy relics. You might have seen some of the holy relic exhibitions. I know several of them went through Europe. Several of them came through Australia as well. So these holy relic exhibitions, when we have a stupa, within that stupa are precious things, and the very best is if there are relics in there. So when the Buddha passed away, he left holy relics, and he said, you know, if you put these relics into stupas, then wherever these holy relics are, there I am. So there were 8 great holy relics that were distributed around the world and went into the stupas, into the really big ones, you know, like Bodhanath Stupa and various things, but there are many, many more holy relics. And then these ones here with the photographs behind each one are the holy relics that come from these holy beings. So there are 3 types of relic. So one is relics that are what we're more used to. So a piece of the robes of a highly realized being, or their soup bowl, or their teacup, or their ritual implements, or their mala. That's one form of holy relics. And it's, I mean, you don't have to be Buddhist to appreciate those. And, you know, even if you're just into sex, drugs and rock and roll, if you've got like Keith Richards' guitar, or, you know, Versace's Rolls Royce or whatever it is. It's like, woohoo, I've got something precious here. So having the things of a holy being, they are really precious. Then there are holy relics that are either the bones or the hair or the remains of great Buddhist masters or great Buddhist saints. And then there are things called rigsul, and they are these precious substances. And here are some pictures of the rigsul that appear in the ashes from when the body is cremated, and they appear looking just like this. So there's different types. So these ones down the bottom here, these are rigsuls of some of the wisdoms, you know, so the red, the white, the green, the yellow. So they're holy wisdom relics. There are relics here. I'm not sure what these ones are, the little green ones. There are ones that look like caviar. There are ones that look like pearls. Geshe Lama Kunchog had holy relics that were, his hair relic was black, but it was sparkly like diamonds. It was carbonized and it was emanating diamonds. So these special substances appear in the ashes from the cremation, and when they first appear, they're very soft. And then over the space of a few hours to a day, they harden. And then you'll see here, there's some of them are there with little bits of saffron as an offering, and they're kept in their little jars. And then through the power of devotion of the disciples, these relics multiply. So I've seen this happen with Geshe Lama Konchog's pearl relics. There was a couple of pearls when the touring exhibition came. It stayed for a week. And over the space of that week, one of the pearls started looking like it had a little bump on it, like it was pregnant. And then one day there was just an extra pearl in there. I mean, it's really incredible. So when Ian Green had these relics there, as they put them all out, they count them all. And then at the end of the exhibition, as they're putting them all back, they count them all. And there were like 14 more holy relics at the end. It's just totally extraordinary. So these are mind-blowing substances, and they are an expression of the realizations of that being. And it's not just famous beings, because I heard in Brisbane, one of the old Vietnamese ladies, you know, there's quite a few Vietnamese that come to the Buddhist teachings, and so don't have a word of English, very humble, always smiling, always saying mantras. And when they when she passed away and they went to cremate her body, in the crematorium, they looked at the ashes and they saw some holy relics and a lotus, but they didn't know what it was. So they just swept all the ashes up and put it in an urn. I'm like, what? So, you know, it's not just famous people that have this happen. The thing about the holy relics too is that, again, it doesn't depend on belief, because you can have those holy relics put on your crown and this feeling of bliss can flow over you. You put them on the crown of the animals and the same thing, they become completely pacified. Venerable Antonio talks about I think it was when Geshe Rabjan passed away, and finding opening up the ashes of the crematorium and seeing this white lotus flower right there in the middle of the ashes. And everybody was so excited. They went to grab it and it just disintegrated. and they just went, oh no, what have we done? So then they went and rang up some Lama, you know, in Copan saying, we just did this. And the Lama said, shut everything up, shut the door again, don't touch anything. And so then 24 hours later, they went and they carefully opened up, they carefully followed the instructions, and they didn't grab, and they said all the different mantras and prayers. And those holy relics actually then solidified from being really soft and subtle. Anyway, so they're there for the benefit of us, to benefit us. So does anyone have any questions now?
You may raise your hand or write in the chat. Don't hold back. Here we are. Nina.
Yeah, Nina.
Why do you circumambulate around a stupa? What is the meaning behind it?
Oh, that's a good question. So, well, I mean, it's a way of creating merit, and or colloquially, we'd think it's a way of creating the positive momentum. And so as you circumambulate, because you are walking around so many powerful holy objects in one go, then it purifies the mind. And so it can purify you. You make that connection with those things, whether you understand them or not. So there is a story about someone in the time of the Buddha who really, really wanted to become a monk, and no one would let him become a monk. And he asked the Buddha, can I become ordained? And the Buddha in his clairvoyance could see that way, way, way back in the past, as a fly, he'd gone from cow pat to cow pat and accidentally circumambulated a stupa. And that created enough merit that he had enough spiritual momentum to then become a monk in that lifetime. So this is something that we can do for our pets, for instance, to just walk them around a stupa. You know, as you go for a walk in the garden, walk them around the holy objects, or pile them all up at a table and play chasey. And it helps, it benefits that mind.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's a good enough answer. I'm going to have to go and get some more for you, Nina.
I think I understand. It's just so up to now I always had the impression that the rituals make something with your own mind when you think in a special way. For example, water bowl offerings, you try to cultivate giving to something, and it's just, I found it interesting that now, like walking around the stupa, that it even works, so to say, for sentient beings that are not aware of it. So
Yes.
this is what I'm a little bit, what I find difficult to understand. So
it's because not all objects are equal. So some objects, even though everything is a dependent arising, our relationship with objects, some objects are more powerful than others. So and some objects carry their own power. So we're quite aware of negative objects. So for instance, things like tobacco and cigarettes, apart from being, you know, a disgusting habit and whatever, there's a whole backstory of slavery and imperialism associated with tobacco. And that all comes along with it, whether we're aware of it or not. So we're polluted by that, as well as the physical, you know, tobacco. But with holy objects, similar thing happens. We get a whole lot more. Another example, so for instance, say with teddy bears, you know, there's a Japanese term for kawaii, of cuteness. So when we relate to something soft and cuddly in a teddy bear, it helps us become soft. So that's why people give teddy bears to people in hospital, because they psychologically, it's like a psychological trick that it connects us with that softness. So a teddy bear carries a lot more momentum or a lot more weight than just being a doll. It has a psychological effect on us. So the power of the object. The power of Buddhist holy objects is because from the side of the Buddha, there is so much power, then it affects us. So there is a story of the Buddha's tooth relic. So, I mean, and that's another one that shows from the power from our side of devotion, that this lovely lady, so devoted to the Buddha, begged her son, who's off, marketing and being a bit of a merchant and trying to make money and stuff, hey son, bring me back a holy relic, please, please, please. And he's, yeah, sure, mum, I will. And so he goes off, he does all his business, and on the way home he's like, oh damn, I forgot to do it, sorry mum, forgot all about it. And she's like, come on, please, please, all I want is a holy relic. So the next time when he goes out, he's just like, oh, forgot again. And he's just looking around. There's this rotting corpse of a dog on the side of the road that's been hit by a truck or whatever. He picks out a tooth of the dog and he wraps it in his nice red silk hanky that he's got because he's trying to be all posh, and he puts it in, he gets home and he goes, here you go, mum, I got it for you. And she's so happy. And she puts it on the altar and she's so devoted. And miraculous things start happening. She's cured of her illnesses. Other people around are cured of the illnesses. And why? Because of her devotion, because it channeled her devotion. So that's generally how we think of how holy objects work. But in a way, we're missing half the story, because from her devotion, that dog's tooth actually became a holy relic, so that other people would come and in the presence of that dog's tooth be healed as if it was the Buddha's tooth. So it became a holy thing. It became much more than just a dead dog's tooth. So the Buddhist relics are like that. If from our side we do something, then what comes back is a millionfold more. Whereas normally in the world, with just ordinary things, from our side we do something, and from the side of the object it's just ordinary and that's it. But if from our side we just make a little bit of inroads, if from our side we just make a little bit of an effort to make our altar nice, or to really offer from the heart, then from the side of the Buddhas, they are there. So we actually open up to so much more. And I know myself, I really underestimated that. And I just found it, even just say volunteering in a Buddhist center, before I came to Langri Tampa Center and I had my own business making costumes, circuses and everything, it was really hard work. It's really hard being self-employed. Everything was a push and a struggle. It was so difficult to get everything to come together. And so when I came to Langri Tampa Center and started trying to organize things, I had that thought, everything's going to be as hard as that. But what happened was things would fall into place. Actually, it was easy. And people would come out of the woodwork and help in ridiculously timely fashion. Unlike anything else that I've ever come across. So that's, again, from the power of the Buddhas, of the power of the Dharma, that if from our side we do what we can, we get so much more help and inspiration back. Okie dokie. Any other questions?
Diana?
Thank you. My question's a lot less profound, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's okay.
When we were talking about using antiques and secondhand things on the altar earlier, and the mantra dependent arising, my statue's actually from an antique shop and I don't know its past. Is the mantra appropriate for that, or is there something different for the actual statues?
No, there's that for the statues, and in fact that can be our own little short consecration ceremony that you can do straight away. Recite the mantra of dependent arising over your statues. That's like the most simple way to consecrate your statues. So actually, thank you, Diana. I totally forgot about that, and that's exactly what we can all do.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so I have one more couple picture to show you. The holy relics. If you ever get a chance to go to a holy relics exhibition, absolutely do so. It's just, I really felt when I connected with these holy relics that, and I had the great opportunity to be able to prepare the room where they were going to go, and did lots of sewing to make it all beautiful. And after that, and then being able to kind of install them, like welcome the holy relics in. It was such a profound experience for me. And I actually thought that was the only time in my life where I've woken up and I've thought, I'm actually not afraid to die. Like I'm no longer afraid to die. I've been able to make this connection with the Buddhas. It was incredibly profound. So much more than just seeing these little things here. So here's another altar. I'm not sure which center this comes from, but again, doesn't it give you an idea of the fields of the Buddhas going on forever and ever and ever and ever? So light, and then the light reflected in the water. Again, when we see this, it reminds us that there are actually more Buddhas than there are sentient beings. Their whole purpose is to help us. It's us who forgets. When we gaze at a Buddha statue, the main thing is to think, this is what I'm going to become. So it's a mirror. It's a mirror for your potential. So we started with His Holiness. We can end with His Holiness. Again, I love this photo because he's so earnest and humble, but clearly communicating with the Buddha and with Lama Tsongkhapa. I mean, just right there in the body language, it's just so amazing. And this is quite an interesting altar too, because like the texts are behind, it's got curtains, like a stage show. So instead of Punch and Judy, you open the curtains, and you know, and there's the Buddha show. There's the Dharmakaya show. How amazing is that? Lots of electric lights, which is also good. So let's dedicate our merits of tonight, that by us building our own altar and taking our time and enjoying it and letting ourselves kind of experiment, may we build a pure environment of the Buddha in our very own house. And when we build this environment for the Buddha, then may we, you know, be inspired by the influence of the three jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha that are represented there on our altar. And may it become a space that welcomes others, that others feel really safe. May the beauty inspire us and inspire others. And, you know, all of the interaction that we have and the offerings that we make to the Buddha, then why may we become just like the Buddha? May we become a Buddha for the benefit of the world, for the benefit of all sentient beings. So it becomes a very natural practice. So let's dedicate that we're able to actually do that. And then every day we can kind of enjoy the journey. So it's brought us to the end of our time, and next week we're going to have a look at water bowls and why and how to make offerings, a little bit more going into what offerings are. Really simple, profound, easy to do practice. You don't need a lot of financial resources. I really hope to see you again in a week's time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miffy. That was absolutely magnificent. I mean, from Laksam Center and everybody being here, thank you. I'm so much looking forward to next Saturday again. And I'm
That's
such
great.
an
Keep the questions. Make sure you know, if you have questions, write them down so you don't lose them, okay? Because I love questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for
Thank
coming
you.
Saturday, and see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Thank